Thank you, Michelle. I love that the main sort of qualifier for me is that I was on time. Like we don't care about that counseling stuff, you know. He was here. Oh my gosh, he was here, guys. So I like that the bar is nice and low. Like I can't blow it that much worse going forward. Hey, Michelle's passing around a little card, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But wanted to get those to you. I do want to say this just real quick. Michelle mentioned I'm a counselor. I've really enjoyed doing that for the last almost 8 or 10 years or so. I've got 4 small kids. We keep really busy at home, and love opportunities to come and speak at MOPS groups specifically. It's kind of funny that you guys are embodiment of a group that I really enjoy speaking to, and in part because this is where real life happens. How you're caring for yourself and how you're taking care of yourself is going to have an impact on your marriages, on your kids, and the future generations thereafter based on, am I grounded and healthy? So to be able to speak kind of to the source is always a place that I love to start, and hopefully by giving some tools in this place, y'all don't have to come see me in my office. So my goal is to come to these sorts of conversations so that I am out of a job over in my office, so something like that. But I'm curious, as we start, are any of you guys stressed? Is stress ever a factor? Okay, you guys are weird. But my hunch is there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of pressure. And if we think about our ideal days, the ideal day for you, sitting here enjoying a MOPS situation, having a cup of coffee with your friends, taking a walk on the beach, enjoying just some relaxation, maybe doing a meditation class, do a meditation, get a massage, 90-minute yoga class, do some shopping for yourselves, just some casual shopping. Knowing you're preparing dinner, going out into your garden and picking all the organic, natural food from your garden to prepare this lavish organic meal with your family or for your family. The children are well behaved the entire time. Your husband comes home in a light and wonderful mood and is so grateful for the clean house and the beautiful meal and the lovely children. And there's this beautiful Pinterest reality of your lives. That's life, right? Isn't that your all's life? Okay, we are on Laguna Beach, right? So come on. That's our ideal life. The actual life is typically quite the opposite, that we're scurrying, that we're stressed, we're doing whatever we can do just to get ourselves showered and out the door, feed our kids, be somewhat sane when our husbands come home, when life continues to happen at home, whatever the case may be. And we don't have those grounded places. So a huge part of my motivation and desire to have these conversations is to say, y'all need self-care. I want to find ways and encourage you to find and capitalize ways that you're able to just ground yourself and care for yourself because you have a huge job and a huge burden that is uniquely expressed in this stage of life. And a lot of times when I talk to groups like this, when I talk to women in my counseling office out of conversations like this, they admit that this may be the only hour that they get, or only minutes or window of their weeks that they get to just kind of be present, just to be connected with other moms, to feel grounded, to feel safe, to feel kind of, I don't have to perform. And largely, a lot of the things that I kind of sarcastically mentioned as this ideal scenario, unfortunately, it's not a joke. There's a huge pressure to really embody those sorts of things. And so when I talk to moms more intimately or personally, they say over and over again, there's this guilt that I feel. I just can't quite shake this mommy pressure or mommy guilt that I feel, that if I don't somehow hit that mark, then I'm failing as a mom. Or God forbid, I'm a bad mom. And the greatest problem with that is there's no clear definition of what a good mom is. We think, okay, well, a good mom is this, this, and this, and in so doing, create this high bar of expectation that's kind of impossible to meet. Don't meet it, end up feeling bad about ourselves and frustrated about ourselves or feel like we're failing, but the reality is we're doing a great job. And we don't have anybody in our lives, or we need more places like this in our lives to say, you're doing a great job. It may not be what you're ascribing to idealism, but it's good, and you're doing good. And give yourself a little bit of a break and a little bit of a breath to realize that the work that you're doing has value, who you are as a person, and how you're impacting your kids and your family has wonderful, healthy, good stuff going on with it. The irony is it's very different for dads. So my wife is a very, very busy professional person, really trying to be a professional working mom, and so I see firsthand kind of the juggling of how she builds her business, at the same time deals with some of these unique pressures of motherhood differently than I do. And we have a high value in my home for co-parenting, so we're both on the same page, and we both want to be hands-on parents, and I very much pride myself and talk to dads a lot about how important it is to be a full hands-on dad. Dads don't babysit, dads parent. And so Feel free to send your husbands to me. I'll let them know what's going on. Yeah. Where's that card? What is it? He's on time and he talks to dads. You're hired. But the irony is, so because my wife is, very busy schedule and at times travels, there's a lot of times that I'm, full hands-on, which is great. I sign off on that. But I have some routines that I do, and I take my kids, I'm up in Newport, Costa Mesa, so I take my kids to South Coast Plaza, where we have a Wahoo's, we have the Carousel, we have See's Candy, and we have the Mac store. That's our routine. That's our program. And I kid you not, so now my oldest is 10. I've probably been doing this routine since he was 1 or 2, kind of pushing the stroller, and then went from 1 child to 2 children to 3 children to 4 kids, which is our current scenario. So you can imagine me rolling in, I'm a cool dad, right? I got it going on. Rolling to Wahoo's with my 4 kids in tow. My kids sit there, we got the program down. They all know us because we're there, so frequently. So we have our ordering routine down. They eat, and they do their thing, and we go to See's Candy and the Carousel. They're getting a little too big for that. Mac store is still a win. And Mac store to me it's really free childcare at the mall, right? Isn't that what it's for? I think that's what Mac is. That's their mission as an organization. But I can't tell you how frequently I get these wonderful, kind looks, these sort of just comments of adoration. What a good dad. Man, you got your kids out here, 4 kids. You have your hands full, don't you? And my kids, they'll have a fit, so every once in a while they'll not be happy about eating their, bean and cheese burrito at Wahoo's. And you're doing a great job. Hang in there, Dad. And I come home and I tell my wife, I'm like, what do you stress about? I could take the kids anywhere, let's just take the kids' place. And she's like, if I go to the grocery store with 4 kids, as soon as I walk in the door, I've got 10 people ew, keep those kids quiet, how dare you? You're a bad mom for letting your kids walk down the aisle or whatever it is. There's a total different judgment system that dads are under, that moms are under. And a part of that is just, well, too bad, sorry girls, stuff. But a part of it, as I say, is an empathetic side of, it's a tough job because there's this pressure and expectation that you're holding and that society is saying you should be ... where we'll give plenty of grace over here to the dads who are, goofy dads taking their kids to the Mac store. But with that, I do want to add one final thing just to kind of let you maybe encourage your husbands with, and that is to understand the similarity. And so I want a little trivia question. What is the similarities between IKEA, the YMCA, and church? What do all 3 of those have in common? They all have free childcare. So on those weekends that my wife is speaking at a conference or, she's out and about somewhere, you better believe we're IKEA for the 45-minute limit, that I'm allowed to have them there. An hour, a whole hour? We're going today. My YMCA, that's an hour a day times 4, y'all. I got 4 kids, holy cow. So that's 4 hours, okay, so that's 4 hours at IKEA for. And then here's the thing, guys, churches, listen. I don't know if y'all go to church, but they have church on Saturdays and on Sundays. So we are so religious when my wife is away, man. We're not Jewish, Dad. Shut up. We're going to temple. Okay, so maybe pass that on. If you get nothing else, free childcare at these locations. Okay. So pull out this little card that you have in front of you, and this little card is something I made a couple years ago that my wife says, Mark, it is embarrassing that you pass that card out. So just so you guys know, that's the current scenario with it. She's like, Mark, it's silly, it's cheesy, don't do it. My friends who are all speakers and do this sort of thing, it's like, peanut butter, thanks a lot. What is that? What are you writing a kid's book? I'm like, well, I might write a kid's book. But they're telling me, don't do it, it's kind of silly, and I'm like, all right, fine, I'm not going to do it anymore. I've done this talk a couple times, but I'll retire the talk. And I kid you not, so the last 2 months, I've had 7 MOPS groups saying, we heard you do a talk called Peanut Butter. Can you come please talk to our MOPS group? This is like a gold mine. I'm going to make an app for it and everything. So the objective of this is not just a corny name, Peanut Butter, thanks a lot. The objective is that this is a tool that you can use for your own moments of self-care and pass on to the kids. So what's fun is my kids now have this at their desk at school. I've shared it with their teachers. So their teachers know they can tape it to their desk if they're having kind of a rough moment to be a grounding, self-regulating tool. So it's something that I think is good for you guys, and I have a lot of adults who use it, and it's a cool thing to pass on to the kids. So let me kind of talk through the points of this, or the parts of this, and in so doing, hope there's a lot of great application for you. I'm sorry, could I bother you for a little cup of water, Michelle? Would you mind if I? Thanks. And a napkin, please, if that's possible. Thanks. So the idea of peanut butter thanks a lot, it's a memory system or a memory device that's used to kind of create this memory associated with action steps that I want you guys to take. And so to know that each letter stands for a specific thing, the hope is that it's a reminder tool to say, okay, I need to do these things in my life more frequently. The first is P's, for the peanut, and that is the idea of pause. And so it's so important for us throughout our days, throughout our lives, to take a pause. And again, I know who I'm speaking to right now. I know the idea of pause is a wonderful idea. And we often think of pause means it'd be great if I did an hour walk down on the beach, or if I got to do a 90-minute yoga class. Not really feasible necessarily in different stages of this current status of parenthood. So a pause literally means 60 seconds, 5 seconds. Just, okay, stop. That's the idea, that we are able to sometimes throughout our day give ourselves permission to just pause. Certainly if we can build on, that's great. One of the reasons I brought my friend David with me, he and I are working together on a coaching project that I'm doing outside of counseling to build more of a conversation of saying, hey, you need to be coached towards being more healthy emotionally, relationally, in who you are as a person, a professional, and so on and so forth. And one of the things that David does is he coaches people through kind of more natural, meditative relaxation processes. So we came early on purpose and spent about 30 minutes down at the beach, and it was just wonderful to kind of allow myself to be led by my friend who's a master in this, to just be there. And first of all, just it's a beautiful place to be that you all know. But second of all, to have just some very intentional thoughts and direction to, I'm just pausing right now. And in so doing, there was all sorts of emotion and wonderful things that came up that was good for me. But just that very initial, just stop for a second, was the beginning of a really good moment of self-care. In our lives, that's all we have sometimes is a moment. And the hope of this tool is that if you can't get those hours, great. Realistically, let's find those minutes. Let's fight for those minutes is the objective in this. So the idea of pausing is just taking a break, stepping outside for literally 5 seconds of our busy, hectic, hurried lives, because we run these hectic and hurried lives. And where we live specifically is supercharged on that. So if America in general is like a high-speed, sort of fast-paced world, Orange County is the epicenter of that in many ways. We run really, really, really fast. It's very important to, as I said earlier, to feel like we're keeping up or we're setting a trend. And when we look, and I said again in joking, these things on Pinterest and these trends and whatnot, a lot of them are kind of built out of this Southern California paradigm, that we embody what the ideal place should look like. And I often call it the paradise paradox, because in so many ways we have so many beautiful things that are truly an expression of paradise. But the paradox is that we don't feel content in it, or we struggle with it, or we feel overwhelmed, or we feel stressed in it. I step back and I do put my psychotherapy hat on from time to time, and I'm recalling this component of psychotherapy called existential anxiety. You guys ever heard that term before? So the existential anxieties are that all people in existence, the theory is that every person, regardless of culture, of country of origin, of age, of race, of gender, have these anxieties as a part of their existence, meaning, what is the purpose of life? Why am I here? What's the meaning of all this? Am I significant? So the psychotherapists who study existential psychology would say, this is something that everybody's dealing with. How do I just prove my significance? One of the ways in this current generation that we do that is by having social media, by having followers. I'm significant if I've got 500 friends. Woohoo! My tweet got retweeted. So I'm significant. And we create this sort of value system based on this ambiguous and subjective standard of impact or social media or whatever it is, or how we present ourselves. And what we're really trying to do is satisfy that existential anxiety of, am I significant? Somebody tell me I'm significant. And then in psychotherapy of existential anxiety, we realize the more we strive for it, the more we realize we're not there. So it becomes sort of a diminishing return. The more effort we put forth, the more we actually feel more anxiety or can feel more anxiety. We think once I hit that mark, I'll be satisfied, but then unfortunately, actually don't. There's a wonderful documentary that I point you guys to called Happy. You can watch it on Netflix. And it's a documentary about kind of who in the world is happy and what really is happy and what really is happiness. And one of the things that's in it is very interesting is they say from a global perspective, when someone goes from $5,000 a year, personal or household income, to $50,000 a year, there's a significant spike in happiness. Because now, my needs are met enough, my tummy has some food in it, I'm no longer in this burden of not having. But the stat from 50,000 to 5 million a year is a very low increase in happiness. So it's fascinating. But yet that is what we believe we want to shoot for. And so we're striving, or obtaining, and realizing, well, I'm still not feeling it. So we have to step back and say, what are the deeper levels of things that truly give me that sense of happiness and satisfaction? And part of that, step one, is step out of the race. Step out of the hecticness of it for a moment. So teaching ourselves to pause, teaching ourselves to kind of take a break, to just stop for a second. This idea of pause is present in a couple other places too. In marriage counseling, when I'm talking to people about conflict resolution or communication issues in marriages, one of the things that I coach right away is the idea of a timeout. So, here we are, let's quickly do a little marriage coaching seminar. Back and forth with your spouse, things aren't going so well, feels like things are getting heated and unresolved. One of the first tools before we get emotionally elevated would be timeout. Let's take a break. Let's step out of this for a moment. We'll come back to it and resolve it. Remember, I coach what's called conflict resolution. Not conflict avoidance or conflict dominance, but conflict resolution. If we're coming to an impasse, we need to take a timeout, step back, cool our jets, then we'll come back to it, try to resolve it, or we'll say, okay, we need some extra support. We need to find somebody like a Mark in our lives and have a conversation with a third party. But we have to take a timeout first of all. Yes?
How long can that timeout last? My husband's been on a timeout for 2 days.
Great. So, funny that you should mention that. I happen to be doing a marriage workshop that I would love to invite you all to talk specifically.
I'm guessing you mean timeout, like a short, quick timeout.
I mean, that's great. Yeah, in all seriousness, so the two parts of it. First of all, we take a timeout so that we're not hurting ourselves or others. So we take it when we know I'm at a place that I'm going to say something hurtful, or this is not going to be not only not fruitful, but actually hurtful. Hopefully we're able to be aware of that when it's no longer fruitful. It's no longer beneficial for us to go round and round. We should just take a break and get some perspective. Obviously, if we're getting upset or hurtful or emotional and feel like we could say something or do something that's not going to be, helpful at all and overtly hurtful, we've got to take the time out. The rule of the timeout are twofold. It is a agreed upon revisiting time. So it's not timeout, I now just get to avoid you and we're never going to resolve it. It's a stated and agreed upon time, which might be 5 minutes. I need to take a minute, step outside. I need to take a minute, get some water, put some water on my face, just kind of cool myself. Or it might be, you know what, we're going to put this on hold and we will come back to it in 2 days. And the reason we'll come back to it in 2 days is because it is midnight. I've got a full day tomorrow. We've got such and such in town the next day. So Thursday morning, we're going to sit down and we're going to revisit this. Or we have a counseling appointment with Mark on Thursday morning. Which is a part of it. But again, we can only implement timeouts when the rule is preset insofar as we will come back to this. Because a lot of times what happens is I'm not confident that we're going to come back to it. I won't accept the timeout and I will push through midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning and get to a place where we're so just beat up and exhausted. We're like, fine, done. And that's not resolution. That's dominance or exhaustion or whatever. So we call the timeout so that we can come back to resolve in a healthy way. Yeah.
I think therapy is good. Sleep, upset, or unresolved.
So we're gonna do Sunday school now. We're all ready for Sunday school. He's referring to a Bible verse. I don't know if everybody's from Christian or Bible perspectives, but there's a Bible verse that says, "Do not go to bed angry." Okay. So another Bible verse says, "In your anger, do not sin." The idea is that anger is something that is a natural emotion that I have some level of control in. I used to think anger was a sin. But the idea of "in your anger, do not sin" means you're going to feel this strong emotion, but in that strong emotion, don't do something hurtful. If that is possible, meaning I have a choice in my action within my emotion, then I can choose to step back, pause, and say, I am very angry about this. And right now, it's important for me not to do something hurtful in it, so I need to take care of myself, calm down, and move from the passion of emotion to the cognition of anger. This is something that is not acceptable and must be revisited. It will not be resolved tonight. We are not going to change the world system tonight, but yet I have a strong conviction that it needs to. So I need to be able to kind of ground myself, and again, that's the part of the pause, to ground myself, to take the time out. I am upset about this. Now I've shifted from I'm angry to I'm upset. I'm not settled with it. A part of me is upset with it. And even if you tell me something that is an answer, it may not be a solution. Case in point, doctor, I'm sick. I go to the doctor. I have an answer for you. You have a terminal illness. Thanks for nothing, you know? So answers alone may not give resolution. So we have to somehow separate our content from our emotion. So that's why I really grab a hold of that verse, in your anger, do not sin. In your strong feeling, don't do something hurtful. In your elation, don't go out and, Laguna Beach, you always go on big riots whenever the Lakers win. You're so crazy like that. Don't go and flip cars in the street because you're so excited. In strong feelings, don't do hurtful things. Acknowledge you have strong feelings and say, what is a wiser choice? That's something I talk about at much length about emotional mastery. We are not slaves to our emotion. We are not animals. We're not dogs who don't have any impulse control. We have this gift of consciousness that allows us to say, stop. I don't have to act out in that anger or in that elation or in that embarrassment or whatever it may be. I have some power of choice. Yeah?
I'm sorry, I know it seems so simple, but when you're in the heat of this argument, when are you coming about to this agreed upon end of timeout? Like, is one of you always better at that? Saying, okay, we're going to just do this Wednesday, or when are you, if one won't honor that, it's kind of chasing you around still.
Right. So in all honesty, this is a larger conversation, and I do want to put it in, because here's the deal. It is signing off to, we agree that we are going to resolve conflict healthfully. So that becomes a banner. In the same way we stood before God and said a vow, a new subset of vows is, I love you, and we agree to resolve conflict in a healthy way. So I do another thing, I call that banners. And honestly, I would love to come back and do a marriage conversation with you guys if you'd like to have me. Where I say a banner or a vow or a mission statement is, we love each other, and we're committed to resolving our conflict in a healthy way. That now becomes an objective outside thing that's larger than my subjective emotions in that moment. Does that resonate? So I'm upset because I feel offended by you or hurt by you or not heard by you, but I know that we both are committed to this larger statement, so I have to, in faith, trust this objective commitment that we both hold that gives me some peace of mind to step back and say, okay, a timeout right now is a healthy way to resolve our conflicts. Having faith that you will come back to it and resolve it with me is a part of my belief in our committed. We wrote this together, we commit, we literally put it on the wall together. I have trust that we'll do that. If that's not happening, then we have a bigger problem of there's not an agreement to who we are as a couple. So that's the bigger piece to it. So there's some foundational work. This is an implemented tool in the moment, just to say timeout. And there's some setup for it to make sure we're on the same page. Cool. But it's great. And again, case in point, one of those things that we have to train ourselves and be on the same page in this context of relationship with ourselves and with others, that taking a break is important. That taking a quick pause is a huge part of our relationships and our self-care. So, cool. And I appreciate the questions. I do want to end it with some time for specific questions at the end. So if it's in the moment, I'm flowing with it. If not, maybe hold off totally. We'll just organically go with it. And I will pause in that moment. Okay. Okay, so I think you guys got the general idea of the P and the pause. And here's the thing. So now with our kids, share this with your kids. So my 10-year-old is just a bundle of just constant kinesthetic energy. And there is just evidence of his presence, via paper trail or breadcrumb trail or shoe off or, backpack unzipped and just kind of this, eating food in a way that is just all over. It's sort of a fascinating art project. And so one of our big things with him is slow down. Great way to teach our kids. Okay, if you're feeling upset, slow down. Take a break, slow down. Okay, so that's the general idea of pause. The second is breath or breathe. And so the idea of taking a breath is a huge part of this. And it's not just kind of like, okay, pause, take a breath. Okay. There's something really powerful about this, and this is where I love this crossover I have of psychotherapy and of just kind of general coaching, is I'm able to understand through science these different ways that our brains work at a biochemical level and realize we get the benefit of those in these little moments with these cheesy cards that we have. So the idea right now, let's do this. Everybody take a nice big yawn. Everybody yawn, okay? Just pretend you're yawning. And tell me real quick, when do we yawn? when are moments in our lives that we yawn? We're tired. Bored. Yeah, bored, tired, just woken up, just going to sleep. Our body's kind of, And a yawn is a physiological process of a long, slow, deep breath to oxygenate our brains, kind of oxygenate our bodies, and kind of give us a sense of, okay, I'm breathing this nice, slow pace. Does anybody do yoga? I know I joked about the elusive 90-minute course. I do yoga. I'm a huge fan. I try to do yoga about 3 days a week if I can. Case in point, we'll talk about another time, I do it at 8 p.m. Our bedtime is 7:15. We do our bedtime routine. Kids are in bed. And that's a window that I can go and work out and still honor kind of what's going on with my parental roles. And so finding a way to make it work. But I love yoga insofar as a number of things, but one of it is the practice of breath. So once you get into breathing and doing yoga more formally, you'll hear what's called the Ujjayi breath, and they'll teach it to you by saying, pretend you're fogging a mirror. And then now close your mouth and continue that kind of restricted thing. But if you think about it, that's a yawn. When we yawn, feel what's happening right here. There's a little bit of a constriction. And the idea of that, and now the science that's backing this up, as yoga is this super popular trend to say, okay, is this just kind of some weird mystic religious thing? What's going on? No, there's actually some physiological evidence that this is a really, really good thing, and there's a lot of benefits to it. But the idea of that constricted breath is similar to a yawn insofar as it allows our bodies to fully oxygenate. So through this slow integration of oxygen into our blood system, it allows us to fully oxygenate all the parts of our body. The irony is when we don't yawn is when we are in immediate danger, when we are under duress, when there's something that is very, very scary. For example, right now, if a tiger jumped in this room, every single one of us at a biochemical level, the back part of our animal brain, we call it back here, would immediately jump into what's called fight or flight syndrome. And fight or flight syndrome is a physiological transformation that produces adrenaline, endorphins, all these chemicals in our body that say, you must survive this moment. You cannot die right now is the most important thing. And that is not coming from our front brain, which is called the executive lobe. So think about it. This is the executive. The midbrain, I'll chat about it in a second because it's kind of like remember of Mice and Men in high school? Is it Lenny? Lenny? The midbrain's kind of Lenny. Really strong and powerful, but not too sharp. Okay? That's kind of the best illustration I can think of. And the back brain is pure animal. It's like the gazelle on the field. Like, okay, I got to eat grass and I got to not die. Eat grass, don't die. Eat grass, don't die. Eat grass, don't. Like, that's it. Pure survival. So those are the three parts of our brain in the most basic, explanation. And so what happens in fight or flight is this back part of our brain, don't die, activates, and everything in our body system is saying, do not die. Heart rate, beat faster to produce more oxygenated blood quicker. Lungs hyperventilate to get as much rapid intake of oxygen as possible to then quickly disseminate throughout our system. Blood pressure, spike. Heart rate, spike. All these quick breathing. Physiological things. Our blood actually moves out of our internal organs more powerfully into our limbs so that we have more fresh blood to run fast or to fight with our arms. It is a physiological shift of our being. All that happens immediately when the tiger jumps in the room. Never would a tiger jump in the room and you go, hang on a sec. Okay, now go. Never. It is a biological, physiological impossibility for that to happen. Here's why I exaggerate this illustration. Our brains, the Lenny part of our brains and the animal part of our brains, don't know the difference between a tiger jumping in the room and kind of a assertive, nasty email from a boss, or a traffic jam on the freeway, or a nasty note from an in-law or something like that. They're unable to tell the difference between those two things, so we are constantly getting barraged in this mid and back part of our brain with, we're going to die, we're going to die, we're going to die, we're going to die. Our logical front brain says, well, no, it's some annoying email. Or no, it's a traffic jam and I'm going to be late. The speaker showed up late last time. Reason in your brain, oh, bummer, we got to figure this out. Animal brain, you're going to die. Hey, ladies, welcome to MOPS. If I die, can someone please take over this volunteer position? That's what's happening back here. We don't have the words for it, so our executive brain is kind of like, just go. Don't die, animal brain, So the idea of a breath is that when we do this long, slow breath, when we take that long, slow inhale, we're overriding the automatic animal biochemical thing that's going on in our bodies. Does that make sense? Because now all of a sudden, okay, wait, no, executive lobe, force yourself to take a breath. Now my lungs say, wait a second, he just took a long, deep breath. Therefore, it's impossible for him to truly be in a life-threatening situation. Animal brain, turn it off. Back down. This obviously isn't a life-threatening deal because it's impossible to take a yawn when you're under life duress. Does that make sense? So we are literally overriding our physiological system. We take that one breath. Okay, slow it down back here. We take it 2 or 3 breaths. And if I had a blood pressure cuff, and this is something I did when I was finishing my license, I worked at a recovery treatment facility that specialized with CEOs, high achievers, people who had just, massive quantifiable levels of pressure on them, and ended up kind of burning out and blowing up in different ways in their lives. And one of the stress management tools that we did was this breathing exercise. And essentially the breathing exercise that we'll talk about in a second is a series of yawn-type breaths, long, slow, deep breaths over the course of 60 seconds, 90 seconds. Hooking up a blood pressure device to their arm, taking their blood pressure, leading them through 60 seconds of breathing and visualization exercise. Taking it again and seeing a significant shift in their heart rate and their blood pressure. I actually did this, so now that I'm a grown, mature father, I had to get my life insurance stuff all organized as part of being grown-ups, I guess, and had my insurance company so that they came to my office. So they came to my office, and I'm sitting there between clients, and the nurse takes my blood, sitting there in my office and does the blood pressure thing. And it was a little higher than it usually is. I usually have pretty low standing heart rate and low blood pressure. And I said, can we take a second and do that again, please? And just, can you give me a second? Took just 30 seconds. Took some calming breaths. She took it again, and it was several points lower. Not dramatically. It wasn't super high in the first place. Several points lower. But the irony is, those points might have been a difference of, $50 or $100 a year over the course of my 40-year term. And I was like, babe, I just saved us like 10 grand, by taking 30 seconds and breathing. So there is a physiological override we can do when we calm ourselves. When we just any questions on kind of understanding how and why that works at the physiological level? So then here's another side of it that we can do if we have time. The model, again, peanut butter, thanks a lot, is you've got, 30 seconds, 60 seconds maybe. What should you do? Pause, a couple breaths, and then move on. If we have more time, and I want to actually take some time here in a minute to really let ourselves go to that place. But the second part of this is called visualization. Where does your brain go while you're also doing the breathing? So part of it is just I can think about the breath. I'm thinking about long, slow inhale, long, slow outhale. That's where my brain is going. That's fine. There's something called visualization, or meditation is another term for it, where you're actually intentionally thinking about some other things that are reinforcing this experience of I'm feeling more relaxed, I'm having a more healthy physiological experience. So 2 quick snapshots of what that can look like would be, one, imagining in our crazy imagination, again, this is why I mentioned the Lenny part of our brain, we can trick Lenny. So if I had like a slide up here of your circulatory system, you guys have seen those like graphs of a human, with all the veins and, their main arteries and whatnot. We can say, let's pretend for a second with some X-ray vision, we can see the oxygen molecules coming in through our air passage, and then each little oxygen molecule aligns with each little red blood cell and then circulates through our body. And let's pretend for a second the oxygen blood cells are kind of this little white, kind of glowing, clear, pure oxygen light. Okay, cool. So I can see the oxygen molecule come into me, and then I can begin to imagine it throughout my entire circulatory system. So if we can imagine, all right, I'm seeing this go throughout my whole body, all my body's oxygenated, my brain's oxygenated, my heart and health and lungs are all healthy and functioning with pure oxygen, that's a pretty healthy state of being. Well, now all of a sudden we just told Lenny we can see that. And that's literally what's happening right now. And so then we have sort of that visualization meditative moment, and that part of our brain is able to say, oh, that's a new memory. In the same way I'm looking at you right now, having this snapshot that goes into my Lenny brain, I'm also able to say, oh, I can also imagine seeing circulatory systems. I'm seeing 50 circulatory systems. Well, that's weird. But Lenny just said, oh, we can see circulatory systems. Oh, we can see the oxygen in your lungs. Okay, I get that now, because we've tricked Lenny. It's kind of easy to trick. Then we have that meditative place, and now we picture in our brains this idea of I am purely oxygenated. Oxygen is a good thing. I can spend more time talking about the science of oxygen and how oxygen is, healing, and there's a powerful, healing source to this chemical that's free to us called oxygen. So it's a very powerful thing, so I'm seeing myself healed in. Another quick imagery that I personally do when I drive from my office to my house, and again, I'm in that stage of life where I'm so fortunate. I drive up, and not even when I walk in the door, because now it's like they see me pull up and they're in the yard or whatever. And I'm still in that stage where it's just like four, just racing little bodies just running to me and just, grabbing me and hugging me and just loving on me. It's like, oh, it's such a sweet, sweet place to be. And I know it's a temporary thing. That's not going to be the case. Very soon they're going to be, over me. But it's fun to be at the place where they're not over me yet. They're really excited to see me come home from work. And here's the deal. My work sometimes is pretty demanding. This is fun being here with you guys, but you can imagine hour after hour of really tough family or personal thing, heavy stuff. And if I come home carrying that, and I'm like, oh, what a bummer day. And I walk in, or I pull up to the house, and the kids jump on me, and I go, guys, come on, Dad just needs some space. I am missing out on this treasured moment of my life that I will not have in a few years. So I want to be as present as I can be. And so part of this idea of the peanut butter thinks a lot is I want to be present in the moment. And one of the ways I do that is I visualize breathing, or I breathe when I drive home, 3-minute drive. I don't close my eyes. But I drive home and I imagine any of the tension that I'm holding in my neck or my shoulders. This is a place where a lot of us hold tension, our upper backs, our necks, our shoulders. I imagine in my Lenny brain that there's some sci-fi release valve from my shoulder to my mouth, okay? There's no release valve of oxygen or air or carbon dioxide from your shoulders to your mouth, but I tell my Lenny brain that there is in my imagination. And so I imagine, with my eyes open, driving and long, slow exhale, I'm telling Lenny, hey, you're blowing out stress. You are releasing through your exhale, that tension that you hold right there. And so just in that short drive, I'm very fortunate, quick little commute, I'm able to do a few moments of breathing like that. Imagine blowing out the stress. And I guarantee you, if there was some medical device that you could put, like a little electrode you could put on those shoulder muscles and neck muscles, we would see a release of tension. Because Lenny is powerful, who then says, okay, hey, biochemistry, body, brain, physiology, release that tension. Relax those parts of the muscles now, because the release valve from the tube from their shoulders to their mouth just was activated. So we can do that through the power of imagination and visualization. Okay, with that being said, can we do a few minutes of a quiet breathing exercise? Cool. And if you fall asleep, God bless you. So sit comfortably for a second. Close your eyes. And just in your comfortable seating position, first of all, just become aware of your body, of your current breathing. Are you breathing shallow? Is it just kind of a relaxed breath? And now with intention, do a long, slow inhale. Just imagine yourself having a long, slow inhale. And give yourself permission to have a long, slow exhale. Just exhaling out. And a few breath cycles like that. Slow inhale. Long, slow exhale. And as you're doing that, I invite you to activate your imagination. And let's pretend that somehow in our imagination, in the mind's eye, we can actually see the oxygen coming into our mouths, into our nose, down into our lungs. And because we have this nice, long, slow inhale, it's a full breath that's coming into the entirety of your lungs. And through imagination, see your lungs full of these molecules of oxygen, reminding us that oxygen is the breath of life, that it's the gift of God, that we are filled with light and life with every breath, that is healing to us, that is good for us. And then as you exhale, imagine the exhale that you can see it as a soot or a exhaust, this gray, dark cloud of junk that's coming out. So inhaling these clear, white light molecules of oxygen, exhaling these little molecules of carbon dioxide that is junk, stress, exhaling tension in our bodies, exhaling insecurities, exhaling frustrations, disappointments, pressures. And continuing to breathe in, you realize that your body is suddenly now becoming completely oxygenated. Oxygen has gone from your lungs to your heart, and from your heart pumped out through your main arteries and veins, and so that your entire circulatory system is newly oxygenated. And you notice that the exhale is less and less dark. It's more just kind of a light gray, and then eventually just kind of a clear exhale. Imagining that you have completely exhaled out all of the stress or negativity or frustration or tension in your body. And you feel deeply relaxed. Become aware of your breath. Nice long, slow inhale in. Nice long, slow exhale out. And I invite you to gently kind of wiggle your fingers a little bit. One more awareness of your breath. Gently open your eyes and come back into this room. How you guys feeling?
Let's do that again.
Pretty good, yeah. And what's crazy, guys, that was about 2 minutes, maybe. And if I went around with a blood pressure device or a stethoscope, we see a different heart rate, different blood pressure, healthier state of being with oxygenation, clearer mind. All because we just sat for 2 minutes and did this simple thing. In the idea of the breathing, I obviously jumped right into where our thoughts go with it. And so thinking is the next part of the peanut butter thanks a lot piece. Yeah.
Just a comment.
Yes, please.
I guess what you're gonna say next might answer my question, but I guess part of, I don't breathe very well. I don't never do this. So for me, I was feeling really, really relaxed, but part of it was not in my mind, was the nice things you were saying. Like I was listening to you and you were saying all
My
those-
soothing voice.
You know what I mean, right?
No wonder MOPS groups always invite me back.
No,
So
but-
inappropriate, I'm sorry. So, yes, yes, yes.
Very positive and
Yeah, yeah.
you were
Yeah.
creating a vision
Right.
that I maybe wouldn't have done for myself.
Okay.
So
So it's helpful to have a guide. So somebody's kind of leading you through this. And this is where, again, knowing that there are, a significant percentage of folks that maybe come from a Christian background, that for some folks, the idea of meditation might have a little bit of a scary connotation. Like, oh, hey, that's, kind of could be spiritually scary. And so I'm leery of that. And so part of it is being very aware, discerning what is in alignment with your value system. I didn't say anything that was, other than I mentioned like breath of God, so that certainly is a spiritual thing. But for the most part, aside from that comment, this is something that I would do as a part of my psychological testing board of what's called guided imagery in psychotherapy. So it's very kind of clinically or spiritually benign, except for a person who may want to choose to spiritualize it more powerfully within their current worldview. I say that to say there are ways you can go out and find podcasts, iTunes and whatnot, like meditation guiding things. And the only sort of footnote to that is be sensitive or aware of what may be in alignment or contrary to your personal value system. So if it's just kind of a body awareness piece, which is the idea of imagining our body healthy, like that's obviously very benign spiritually, or it can be profoundly spiritual from a Christian perspective or from an Eastern perspective if you choose to do that. I simply ask for awareness as you go and pursue that so that it's congruent with who you are. Yeah.
I just wanted to add to that. I mean, I've done yoga since I was probably 13, and a lot of guided imagery and meditation, and I do it with my son too, who's 4, which
Yeah.
is really kind of a cool thing to share.
Yeah.
But I always try, sometimes I'll find myself in a yoga class or find myself doing some kind of meditation where I'm thinking, oh, what are you talking about? So I just kind of try and put my own filter on it, if ever that happens, because some of those meditative imagery things are still useful. They just might add in some stuff that's not really applicable to me, so I just don't, like in my head, I just don't apply it, But there are a lot that you can find that are really in line with your value system and are appropriate. So if I'm just saying, if ever you go to a yoga class and you come up against something, you're like, what is happening?
Sure. And I mean, a footnote to that across the board is we all have a sound mind. You all have, the capacity for thought and whatnot. And so filter that through everything. Every lecture you hear, every book you read, every TV show you watch. Say, is this congruent with who I am and what I hold, in high value? And then from that, you are assertive, both with how you're taking this in, or if you choose to take that in again.
Yeah.
It's also, you might be, I'm not going to buy that podcast again. Okay, cool. There's other ones to do. So if specifically you wanted to say, okay, I want to find, through Google or iTunes, whatever, Christian meditations, Christian relaxation, that's all wonderful and good. Google that. The term in psychology is called visualization, relaxation, breathing exercises. Anything in the realm of psychology, by nature of ethics, needs to be spiritually benign, but then a person can choose to apply their preference or values if they so choose. David?
I was just going to add too, I have an app on my phone that's very benign. It's called Buddhify. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's meditation for waking up, for going to sleep, for walking, for shock. I mean, it's for everything, and it's very spiritually benign. Again, I have Christian beliefs, but this is very safe. And it's called Buddhify. I think it's $4 on your phone, and it's real easy to use, and the voice is kind of like yours. It's very calming.
Thank you, David.
Yes. And so check it out. It's worth checking out. It's really
There you
good.
go.
How do you spell the Buddhify?
I knew you would ask that.
Random weird.
Just a second.
But again, I bet there's lots of them like that. There's lots of
Yeah,
them.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
Buddhify.
It's not Bootyfy. That's a different. If your husbands have that app, send them to me. We'll talk. It happens. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a 5 and a 6-year-old boy. Super energetic. Just that's craziness. Like your 10-year-old times 2.
Sure.
Do you have any, or anybody, I'm thinking, kids yoga might be kind of nice for that. Is there?
I just started,
Thanks.
thank you.
Hey guys, I got an email list coming around. Please, if you're interested at all in some of the stuff that I do, I'm starting this new Balanced Life Academy that is more lectures of this, because I love these conversations so much, but having them one-on-one in my counseling office, I need to have them one-on-many, because there's too much just basic stuff. And so I am doing a parenting and marriage thing. So please fill this out, give me your email, or look at my website and follow. But your question, do yoga with kids or breathing with kids?
I have an answer for you.
And I do,
Well, listen, let you guys chat. Let me just say 2 minutes on it, but I do want to get through. I've got a few other things I want to make sure we get through before we run out of time. So yoga is something that we did with the kids early on. There's some great kid yoga programs. Again, you got to be resolved that that's not a conflict of your East meets West, paradigm. So if you're comfortable with it, lean into it, find it out, check it out. But specifically, something we integrated early on is called yoga breath. So very early on with my little guy and now my other kids, we said, take a breath, and we called it yoga breath because it was in line with this super cute little yoga program we did where it's like, be a boat, be a cat, be a, fun yoga thing, but they integrated the breath piece with it. So yoga breath was something we said early on, like, okay, yoga breath. And, if you need to call it Jesus breath, if that's what you got to do it. But just, help your kids regulate. Peanut butter, thanks a lot. I just said it today to my kids as they go to school. Like, okay, whoa, remember, peanut butter, thanks a lot, guys. Take a breath, calm down. Yeah, did you want to say something real quick? Okay. Cool. Hey, let me get through a couple of these other things real quick. So they're just gold, you guys. This is treasures that I'm giving you. So real quick, the think piece is that I want to be self-aware. So a quick sort of intake. What's going on in my brain space? What's going on in my body? Take a minute of inventory. Obviously we did a lot of overlap with the idea of visualization and whatnot. So breathe and think go hand in hand to say, really, what's going on with me? Where am I at? What am I experiencing? As David and I spent our time down at the beach this morning, we took a few minutes and stood up there at the top of the park there at Cliff Drive and just kind of, what are you feeling, Mark? And I'll be honest with you, I said, one, I'm feeling a beautiful nostalgia because I grew up in Mission Viejo and we came out here. This was through the canyon, and so this is a very nostalgic place for me. That the tide pools and the rocks is very. My inner child just loves to play here. But I said right under the surface, and if we had more time and I knew we weren't coming to be here, there's a lot of emotion that I am feeling some sadness that I haven't brought my kids here more. into this specific rocks. We go to the beach all the time in Newport or wherever, but these rocks and these tide pools and the sea urchins and the sea anemones and the clam, I want my kids to richly, drink that in. And it wasn't a sweeping statement of, I'm a bad parent. It was very specific. I am a good parent. I'm having wonderful memories and presence with my kids. Sure, could I have more? Sure, we all have that moment. But it was a specific thing of, I want my kids to experience this. And so that was part of the awareness of my thinking process that I was able to go to and be in tune to because I paused, took a breath, and then I was ready to do the mental emotional check. So that's the thinking piece of where am I at in the moment. I'm presenting it in this long, long thing. The application is going to be, throughout your day, stop, breathe, quick mental check. Where am I at? I got some stuff to do. Okay, be present with it. Now go. I mean, that's what I'm teaching you guys. The principles are much deeper than that. If we have time, get into them. But I want this to be a normalized thing. In the same way, holding our phones, leaving our house without our phone is a very important thing. Our phones are now a normal part of who we are. I want this to be a normal part of who we are. I'm checking in at this emotional, psychological, spiritual checkpoint throughout the day so that I'm not mindlessly losing myself to the tasks at hand. Real quick, and if you guys actually want to send me an email, I can send you more thorough notes because I've got a worksheet on body awareness, sort of a mental checklist that you could write out. Okay, here's where my body is at right now. My tummy's not feeling so great. I need to eat. I'm holding tension in my shoulders. My heart rate feels fast. My breathing doesn't feel great. So it's kind of a self-awareness checklist. Where am I at physically? Can I train myself to be cognitively aware of my being and my circumstances? The term is mindfulness. And more time. Can I come back and do part 2 sometime, guys? So one of the things that you'll hear me talk over and over again about is about protecting our minds. Here's the deal. If we were sitting in our living room and, let's say I'm sitting there watching a show with my wife, kids are in bed, and all of a sudden some random dude just walks in my house as an intruder, I'm not going to sit there passively. I'm not going to just kind of like look over as he goes over and gets in the refrigerator and pulls out, soda, or he comes over and plops on the couch. It's going to be, like, what are you doing, dude? No, I'm going to be very assertive, in fact, probably aggressive, to protect my home and my family from this intruder. But yet, apart from our family, the most sacred space is here and here, our hearts and our minds. And yet we allow intrusive thoughts and feelings and interpretations to come in all the time. You're not good enough. You're failing. You're not blank enough. Whatever fill in the blank is a negative intruder coming into our brain that says, we're invading you. Shame on your peace of mind. Shame on your contentment. We're going to disturb your peace. And we allow it all the time. The idea of this, of self-awareness, of thinking in the moment is no. You get out of here with the same level of assertive aggression that I would have if I was physically being intruded or my home was physically being violated. Does that make sense? And we don't do that. Like that's a crazy paradigm for us to think, oh wait, I should be that aggressive. I should, get down of here, like become the schizophrenic arguer in my brain. But yes, we should. Because here's the deal. If more time, we let the thought come in. Lenny believes it's true. Biochemically, then we feel more depressed, less confident. We go from this to this, physically and emotionally, because we've allowed the intrusive thought. So a whole other piece is called emotional mastery. We've got to be sharp to fight those feelings.
So the same way that emotion, whatever trigger happens to you, and you get that visceral response, let's say, whether it be your heart rate or whatever, you tell the intruder to leave, but you also have to deal with it at some point, right? So when is the intruder allowed to kind of
Well, so
deal with
the much larger package again, and I hate being a commercial, but it's the idea of a larger piece where I'm both reacting and proacting. So reaction in the moment is, okay, stop, get out of here. Affirmative thoughts. So I need to train myself to go to affirmation instead of intrusion. But then the proactive side is daily meditation, daily quiet time, daily commitments to my banners, my sort of other keywords that I have to say these are things I have to reassert, affirmations, banner statements that are the core of who I am, reaffirming the value of who I am on a proactive, sort of almost ritualistic side. That I'm prepared for it and then ready to respond in the moment. It's like me both. I will get up from the couch and physically assert myself to get this guy out of the house, but I'll also lock the door. I'll also pay for the security system, you know. So that's the pre-side, that's the proactive side, and then the healthy reactive side. So there's a lot we can do with that. And again, that's just called cognitive therapy. So a huge part of it is Googling cognitive therapy to help ourselves have more positive thoughts and whatnot. We go on and on about that. Lastly is ACT. Let me just hit this real quick, and then maybe a quick question and then go. ACT, and then we have 2 more. So real quick, the actions are what do we do in that place? Once we pause, do a little self-awareness, what is then our action out of it? Hopefully we will have, appropriate action as opposed to an impulsive reaction. We have these impulsive responses of just flying off the handle. In your anger, do not sin. We act out of impulse from the emotion, as opposed to this paradigm is, no, I have a choice in my action. I can hold my tongue. I can do another series of breaths. I can literally go the other direction. I don't have to continue to being in this place. There's another tool that I would chat with you guys. I call it 60-second mood changers. What are things that we can do in 60 seconds to literally change our mood? What song can we listen to? What pictures can I look on Instagram? What are things that I can do? Enjoy my coffee. Take some more breaths. There's a number of things that I would suggest if we had more time. I'd actually have you guys do some of them. But the idea is we quickly move to a positive action instead of reacting. Lastly, it's called love and laugh, or love or laugh. This is the idea of, in this action, let's do something that's life-affirming. Anytime we laugh, in fact, everybody do this for me. Big smile and even just a quick little laugh. Everybody just chuckle. I just said a really funny joke, chuckle. Again, Lenny just said something really funny happened. Dopamine, which is our feel-good natural brain chemical of joy and happiness, dopamine released because obviously something really good is happening. Organically, that happens when something really good happens. That's why we have this wonderful feeling of euphoria, when we experience something beautiful, or we have this lovely, intimate encounter with our spouses, or we have, this passionate sort of encounter, or delicious food that we eat. All that produces dopamine biochemically, feels good. Lenny can be tricked. So when we recall a funny moment or a loving moment, we can actually re-experience that in our mind's eye, in our biochemistry, to have a little dopamine hit. So to recall or to do something that is in the actions of love or laughter is going to produce those chemicals. Another word for it is called euphoric recall. Actually have the euphoria of how wonderful it was. I experienced some of that today. Part of my emotions today was seeing myself as a little 5-year-old running around. For me, it was actually down at Liso Creek Pier. Remember that? Anybody my age remember there used to be a pier down there? But that was sort of a landing pad for us, and just that's my sweet little happy inner child place. I re-experienced some of that through euphoric recall. I was actually having a biochemical experience, earlier this morning. So all of that happens in your place. Hey, lastly is this. Pull out your phones. I'm going to give you this challenge. If you choose not to do it, it's your choice. But my challenge is this. Set an alarm on your phone. Set an alarm for 3 p.m. Do a specific ringtone for the alarm. For me, I got a new iPhone, but I had to go to the classic ringtones, because I'm old school, y'all. The classic ringtones of strum. So strum is kind of like this guitar strum, like strum, dun, 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 dun. So that's a little throwback for me in the digital era. And so I've got a special ringtone. You can actually download a specific ringtone for it. But the idea is every day at 3 o'clock, that alarm goes off, and it reminds me, pause, to breathe, to think, act or check my actions, and then to find... Praise the Lord! Wait, hang on. I love it. And so then we create this, sense association, and we have this new tool that we go to. And there are times, okay, thank you, you all found it, thank you. You guys junior hires, oh my gosh. So here's the deal, we create this positive association, and we're training our brains to do it regularly. To be honest, I have to mute it because I'm sometimes seeing people, my heart is hurting in therapy. Strum. What's up, dude? So I have to mute it. But nonetheless, then I look at my phone, at 3:05 or whatever, and it says peanut butter, thanks a lot, or PBTAL. And so it just reminds me, just take a breath. I've got another tool I'll talk about another time. That's my 11 a.m. alarm. So at 11 and 3, I have alarms that go off on my phone that remind me to kind of be grounded. That's a little grounding tool throughout the day. The final thought on that is there was a moment after I did this because I don't want to talk about something that I'm not personally applying. I'm one of those guys who, I don't know, decides not to be a hypocrite. I don't know, go figure. So I want to practice what I preach. And so I put this on my phone and have that strum sound. And there was a day that my sweet little spunky 5-year-old Karis, my youngest, was choosing to play in the dirt instead of getting in the car to go to the event that we were going to. We're going to an event, needed to be dressed nice without mud. And I really appreciate you all setting your alarms. Like, actually, I'll tolerate it because I totally know you're doing it. So I know at 3 o'clock today, you're all going to have this sweet Zen moment of, oh, peanut butter, you know. And I hope you don't have a peanut allergy, and you freak out. Like, peanut butter, bad association. Oh, I could die. But hopefully you don't. So I got my phone in my pocket. My daughter's playing in the dirt. I need her to get in the van so we can go. And I'm just like, we got to go. Let's go. It's one of those parenting moments of, I love you. I'm a good parent. Now get your ass in the car. I'm like, I'm going. So she's getting in the mud. Get out of the dirt. Honey, get out. Honey, And so I'm walking over to her. Walking. So I'm walking to her. All of a sudden, strum. Happened to me right at 3 o'clock. And I'm like, that little moment changed me. Not that I was going to be some abusive, out of control parent, but it changed the way I disciplined and instructed my child. And it was a disciplining moment. Like, discipline was required. Like, I'll come back and talk about discipline. Y'all, we need to discipline our kids because that's shaping their character. Don't be afraid to discipline, but we can discipline in health. So, point being, I can discipline, but it was a quick check for me to make sure that I wouldn't discipline out of frustration and anger, but rather discipline out of, this needs to be an appropriate correcting moment to not only get us going, because that's a part of what I call healthy parenting is, y'all, we got to go, let's go, but not out of anger or frustration. And so that grounded me. My hope is that's for you guys as well. And please, please, please call me, email me if I can help more. I'd love to come back in all honesty. Thank you very much. I do got to run now, though. Thank you very much. Thanks.